Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you how we can deploy Django Project on DigitalOcean using Cookie Cutter and Docker. If you haven't signed up, you can use the link in the description. Also, additionally, I've set up a Patreon, which is just £1 a month, which is like the price of one pot noodle per month. If people want to support, they can do that there. Hey guys, after reviewing this video, I wanted to make a quick precursor to only use the official Docker documentation to install Docker. So if you're on Ubuntu, this link will be in the description. If you're on other Linux distribution, you'll have to follow a guide. Just follow this install Docker engine on Ubuntu guide to install Docker. It's pretty quick. I think it's only a handful of steps. Later in the video, there will be a section called installing Docker. I will label it as a chapter, and you can skip to there and follow to install it. I'll be installing that on DigitalOcean, but if your local machine is also Ubuntu, then you can go ahead and follow that. The main difference between what I'm doing in this video locally and what you'll be doing is the way we write our Docker Compose file. I'll be writing it as Docker Compose, and you'll be writing it as Docker Compose, like so. So that's it. So before we get started, we're going to need two things. We're going to need Docker and we're going to need Docker Compose. So the next thing we need to do is install Cookie Cutter, and then we need to use Cookie Cutter to create our Django Cookie Cutter project. So I'm going to be first creating a virtual environment using venv, which I think is part of this Python standard library now, so I think it comes by default with Python 3. If it doesn't, then I'll try and remember to leave a link in the description on how to download it. So Python 3 venv, and we're going to call it tenv, which is just testenv. Make sure that exists, and now we can activate it. So we've activated our virtual environment, and this is where we're going to install everything. So we're going to do a pip. I'm going to do Python pip install, and we need this cookie cutter. Now make sure to enclose this in single quotes, otherwise, and I actually did this a second ago, what we're just going to do is we're going to put cookie cutter inside. We're going to put the download inside a file called 1.7.0. So let's do that. Collecting. We've installed everything, successfully installed. Clear that. And now I guess we can set up our project with this command, which I need to copy and paste. So cookie cutter, and then just exactly as I've done here, gh cookie cutter /cookie cutter.django. I'll try and leave a link in the description to the GitHub repository. I've downloaded it before, but that doesn't matter. Let's do it. So project name is just going to be my proj, doesn't really matter. That's fine. Description, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. So you can customize this as you want. Version, doesn't matter. MIT, that's fine. Time zone, UTC, Windows, no. PyCharm, no. Docker, yes, this is important. Postgres version, yep. AWS, I'm not using it, so I don't really care right now. Mailgun. DRF, no. Everything that's kind of created is useful, but we can just install DRF ourselves and whatnot if we need to. Celery, no. Again, we can install it ourselves. White noise, yes, actually, because that's going to be needed so we can actually see our admin when we deploy it. New Soroku, no. Select, don't care. No. So we're clear. That should now exist. So we can cd into our project, and we can see we've got something that looks like a normal Django project. We've got our manage.py file, and we've also got these, like we've got production.yml and local.yml, which have been generated for us. So something that I'm just going to quickly do, and I need to look up the command for this, although actually I think it's just docker prune. I'm going to try this. Docker prune system volumes, and basically what I'm making sure, I think it's docker system prune. Yeah, so I'm just going to delete everything I have already because I've got some other projects on the go. And all you're doing really is deleting your local volumes. And this is important if you've got other Docker pod, because this is just going to use some default credentials. So if you use those default credentials before, then the database is not going to become available. So the next thing we can really do is, but you just want to do Docker Compose, and if you haven't added it to sort of any pseudo groups, then you just you need to do a sudo. I can do docker compose, and then we're specifying the file local because we want to see if Docker's working locally, and then we're also putting it up, we're putting it in the background with this, so detached, and then we're building the project also. So hopefully everything will work. So if you're following along, you probably realize that takes an absolute age to install and download everything, but it should only take ages the very first time. After that, it's sort of like cached and it's quicker and quicker when you make changes. So let's take a look. We decided to use the local file because we wanted to just check if we can get our Docker working locally. We can just take a look at where what port everything is on. So it's going to be on port 8000 for us. Of course, this is going to be, and then we've got something else on port 9000 as well, which we can take a look at. So we go to our browser now, and we go localhost/8000. We should see our project. So this is like our main Django project, and I think it actually does have like a form and stuff for you by default, but I'll definitely delete all of that. And in another video, by the way, I'm going to show you how to Dockerize an existing project, but that's not this video. This is just like getting started and all that stuff. And we noticed we had something else on port 9000, and this is actually the docs, which it sets up also, which is pretty cool. So you can actually, you know, keep that and use that if you wanted to. But that's it for really the first part. The next part is going to be, actually trying to set up a production environment on something like DigitalOcean, which we're going to be doing now. So the next thing we need to do is set up our server, pretty much. And the way we do that is by going on DigitalOcean, link in the description. I think you might need to create a project or something, and then we click on Droplet, and we create our Droplet. Takes a second. I'm just going to choose Ubuntu, an Ubuntu image. I'm going to go with the shared CPU, basic, and we're just going to choose the cheapest one, which is 1 CPU and 517 RAM, 512 megabytes RAM, I think. New York is fine. Also, if you're actually deploying in America and that's where you think your customers are going to be, from my research, I think New York is better than San Francisco. I think New York serves more people on average, or is closer to more people. As you can see, I've got 2 SSH keys already associated with this account, I guess, but you will want one, so I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that. It actually tells us, so we can walk through that. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that we are just in our sort of root. So I'm just in home monkhouse, so not in our project folder or anything. So we can go, I mean, you can do that by just clicking CD probably if you're on Linux. Then I'm going to show you something. So we have SSH keys stored somewhere. If you've got GitHub, you've probably already done this, and they're stored in SSH. And you can see I've already created a few. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and remove Ocean 2 and remove Ocean 2.pub as well. So clear that and just have a look at that again. Okay, they're all gone now. Let's go back to where we were. And what we want to do now is SSH keygen. It actually showed us how to do that here. So run that. Where's the terminal? And then we need to make sure it's stored in the correct place. We're going to name it. So monkhouse for me.ssh. And then, you know, this here you can just call it whatever you want. I'm probably going to call it Ocean2 like I had there. We just call it Ocean2 actually like that. You can call it DigitalOcean, whatever your project's called, or whatever you want really. So Ocean2, no passphrase. So that's been generated now, and actually if we go into SSH, that should exist now, which it does, and we can just cat Ocean2.pub. So this is what we need to grab now. So grab this, copy it. Let's see, create droplets, and then you just copy and paste it into here. And then you can call this whatever you want. I guess I'll call it Ocean2. I'll probably delete it at some point. So we've added that now, and we've selected it. So one more thing, the last thing we need to change up on review is the plan we choose. When I first tried to do this video, I was using the cheapest plan, which I have successfully done before in the past with an application I built in the same sort of fashion, but I don't know what version of Docker it was. But I'm telling you now that you don't want to go for the cheapest. I haven't tried these tiers. I'm going to go for this tier, which is about 4 pence per hour. I mean, honestly, if you're just testing things, it really doesn't really matter that much. You know, if you have it running for 10 hours, that's going to cost you 40 pence. Why not even? It's going to cost you about 36 pence. If this really is too expensive for you though, you can use Hetzner, for example, and we can see that for the same sort of, for 2 CPUs, like we're going to choose, and 4 gigabytes of RAM, this is going to cost about 5.83 euros per month, which is quite significantly cheaper than what we're paying over here. But I'm going to go with this, and it's just because Docker requires, like, it's quite hungry. I think it wants 4 gig of RAM, which will just make everything work much nicer. Nothing else changes. We're still using Ubuntu. I'm going to go with this plan. New York, again, doesn't matter. We're still going to use the same key that we generated. Nothing else changes. And that's it. So we can go ahead and create that project now. So we can wait for this project to be generated. Great, so this is now active, and we can actually log into the server using SSH. So yeah, the next thing we really want to do is SSH into our server, and we can do that just by going to our terminal and running this command essentially. So I'll just talk you through it. So we're just going to SSH like usual. For me, this is the IP address here of the server we've just generated. So again, this will be here. You can just copy and paste this, so you can see they're the same. The default user for Ubuntu is root on DigitalOcean. If you use a different distro, it might be something else. And here we're just specifying which key to use. So for me, it's in home, monkhouse, SSH, where all your keys should be, and I want to use the DigitalOcean 2 one because that's the one that we've enabled. So doing this should allow us to now access this server. Here you just want to type yes, and we're in. So we've actually managed to SSH into our server. So the next thing we want to do is copy our files over to our new server. So I want to copy everything in my project over to our DigitalOcean server. Now you could do this with GitHub, but it's more dangerous because anything that's basically in gitignore won't be uploaded to GitHub. So when you download it onto your server, you're going to have a bunch of files missing. So the best way to do it is really to just copy everything over using SCP, which is what we're going to do. So we're going to grab this command here, and I can talk you through it quickly. So SCP is just a way of kind of copying files, and we're going to do it through the SSH tunnel. So again, your IP for your server goes here. We want to put it in root, which is just going to put it next to the snap folder that we saw. What do we want to copy? We want to copy my project, which is right here, as you can see. What key do we want to use? Well, we want to use, which is this -i flag, I think. We want to use our DigitalOcean 2 key. So that's it really, and the -r really is just recursively, so it's saying that we're going to grab everything within my project and not just like the folder. So we do that, and that's going to take a few seconds to a minute. So I'm going to stop recording there, and when it's done, then we can go back into our server and install Docker. So all of that's been copied across now, so we can go back into our server and make sure everything is there. So we can see our project files. Well, I guess we can't see that yet. We can now see our project files have in fact been copied across, which is wonderful. I'm just going to clear to put this at the top of the terminal. Should probably make this bigger as well. Apologies for not having done that sooner. So we can see all our files here. So the next thing we need to now do is install Docker. So I am really just going to be using the instructions that are given to us on the server, so you can kind of do it with me. I have written them out in a file for myself actually somewhere, just to make it hopefully a bit faster. So step 1, we're going to run this, and it's going to say unable to locate Docker engine, which is kind of what we expected. The next thing we want to do is do a sudo update, and again all of this is just following these instructions. I've just written them out for myself. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab this command, whoops, yeah, paste that, install all of these things. So that's perfect again. So we've done these steps. I guess I can just copy out from here actually, just to make it easier for you guys. Do that command, do this command, do this command, yep, paste that. So now we need to install Docker engine, so we're going to go update, install these things, yes. After that we can list these. In a moment. Have a glass of water. Okay, wonderful. We can now list these. So list versions available in your repo, and we now basically want to run this command, but as you can see we have version string and version string. I think that I actually did this before, so I can just go ahead and copy this. But as you can see, all I've done is literally do what they say, which is anywhere where it replaces version string, we just replace it with this bit here. So from 5 to Jammy. So docker-ce equals docker-ce equals 5 all the way to Jammy, and then again docker-ce-cli equals the same thing again. So wonderful. And then we can pretty much check if we've done everything correctly by doing a sudo docker run hello world. Wonderful. So this message shows that your installation appears to be working correctly. Something that we can do now is do docker PSA, and we can see that's running. Wonderful. But actually, just quickly before we do anything else, we probably want to do docker stop. Just grab the container ID. Cool. So nothing should be running. Well, I exited now. And something else I want to do now is docker. I think it's system prune volumes. We're just going to make sure basically that nothing related to Docker exists anymore, as in any sort of files. So nothing exists now. Okay, wonderful. So clear that. So we've installed Docker. We know Docker is working. I guess something we can do now is basically try and run production, which we're not going to do just now because there are some changes we need to make. So we probably just want to actually exit. So our connection's been closed. I'm going to use VS Code to open my project. And there's a few changes we need to make. Not loads though. This will be pretty quick. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a control F in our project for example.com. And then we're going to change all of that to be our IP address. So firstly, let's grab it. So we're going to grab this. And anywhere where it says this, we can just copy our IP address instead. This is particularly important in traefik, and we need to make a few more changes in traefik as well, traefik.yml. Okay. That doesn't really matter actually, but we want to make sure the default is going to be our server IP. And actually, something worth mentioning is if you have a domain already on DigitalOcean, then you can just, rather than put an IP address, you can just put your domain. So if you remember earlier, for example, for me, if we go on here, I have questionly.app. So anywhere where I put my IP address, I could just put questionly.app instead. So if you have something like that already, then go ahead and do that, and you'll actually have to make less changes. Okay, so let's continue. This doesn't matter either. That doesn't matter either. I guess we'll change these. I think these are just migration files. Maybe it just probably doesn't really matter. So we've changed all of that. Now, one thing, there's still a couple of things we need to change. So basically what happens right now is we try and give our IP address an SSL certificate, which we can't do because it's just the IP address. So we really just want to be using HTTP and not HTTP secure. But as you can see, even if we were to use HTTP right now, it just redirects to web secure. So the first thing, and again, you only do this if we're using our IP address. If you're using a domain name, then everything can stay the same and you're ready to go. So this needs to be gone, firstly. Then this needs to be gone here in our HTTP. So get rid of that, and rather than going with web secure, we're going to go with web. And that's it. So now everything should be ready to go. And something I'm just going to do, again, sort of my apologies, I guess. We're going to go back into our server. We're going to rf our project. Make sure it's gone. We're going to exit. I'm going to clear this, and we're going to do SEP. We're just going to do this again, and we can go back into our server now. Clear all of that. Go into my proj. I'm going to copy this over. So we want Docker compose, and the file we want to specify is production. Are we in our project? Yeah, production. And then we want it to be up. We need to build it still, and then we want it to be a background progress, so like sort of detached. So let's go. I'm hoping this all works. So again, we can sort of do Docker ps a, and it looks like everything is up, which is wonderful. So what we can do now is go to the internet. Let's grab this IP, and port 80 is default anyway. So we're getting a 404 page not found. Okay guys, after doing some debugging, I realized what my issue was. So if we go into if we're going to traefik.yml, sorry. The issue, I believe at least, I haven't tested it, is that when I commented out this TLS, I also commented out Django service. So let's save that, cd my proj, and we can try and run, let's see, compose. We can try and run this again. I'm not sure if I ran that as a background. It looks like everything worked. Although, again, you should have run that with the dash detached, but we can do that again in a moment. So let's try this again. Bad request. Okay guys, I think the final fix now, we just need to go into .envs, which is invisible. I.e. if you do this, you can't see them. We're gonna have to do lsa cd dot into production, and I'm going to use nano. You can use whatever you want, of course. We need to copy our host into here, and our host, of course, is so hopefully that will work. And we'll do docker compose. This time we're running it detached. Everything's started. In fact, we may as well use Chrome. And everything is working. Perfect. So that's going to be it for this video. I'll probably be making some similar videos where we kind of try and speed this process up even more. But for now, hopefully your project's working. Probably if you have any problems, it's most likely going to be something to do with your IP address not being everywhere it needs to be. You know, it's a bit odd because it looks like we set it here, so I'm not sure why maybe those files just didn't copy over. Well, they must have. So yeah, I'm not really sure what happened there, but it happened. In terms of, unless this is like part of a, okay, it seems we didn't save this file, which is the problem, as you can see. Okay, so that's what happened, indicated by this dot. Okay, that's fine. So we know what happened. And the other thing that happened is the service here was Django. So the other thing though is if you do have a domain name, then you need to use a real email. If you use your .example.com, you're not going to be able to generate it. So if you have tried actually keeping everything the same, and you've just put in your, you know, mydomain.com and www.mydomain.com here, which is what you need to do, and any other hosts that you might have, then the issue you might have is that this needs to be a real email for you to generate a certificate. And that's it really. So yeah, hopefully that was useful. Thank you for watching. Leave a comment if you have any questions, subscribe, all that jazz. And yeah, thank you.